Otherwise, this there it goes. All right. We do have a presenter. Scott Durand is here to speak with us about the Wabasha Kellogg Area Community Foundation. We'll let you take it away, Scott.
Take a run past around. Good evening, Mayor Durand, Council, and staff. Thanks for allowing me to speak here. I'm currently the president of the Wabasha Kellogg Area Community Foundation. I'll just call it the foundation from here on out tonight. It's kind of a mouthful, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of bring you up to speed on what we've been up to. And I want to thank the city for being such a great partner with a lot of our projects in the past. I think we've worked really well together on some things in the last few years, and I know we look forward to doing that in the year to come. And so just to kind of a brief history, our organization was started really to create an opportunity to fundraise and invest and give back to our community and keep all the charitable dollars that we raise right here in the Wabasha Kellogg area. We've worked really well, like I said, with the city and a lot of other organizations over the past as well, and I'll kind of briefly touch on those shortly here, and you have a brochure that you can follow along with. But essentially, all of the donations that come to the foundation are handled by our parent company, Smith, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. That's a donor-sponsored foundation that invests in 20 different counties in South Central and Southeastern Minnesota. And really, their goal is just economic development and being sure that we are a healthy place to live, work, and play. And the nice thing about that is that they handle all of the fiduciary responsibility. We are able to use our 501c3 tax data so that all of the funds that people donate are tax deductible. And really their administrative work to help us do what we do here is very inexpensive for us, so it's a really good partnership. And also periodically they offer us some matching funds that we take advantage of just to make the dollars go even further. So if you just look at the brochure here, you can see that we've had a big impact in our community. The center section of the trifold just kind of briefly outlines some of the organizations that we work with and some of the things that we've done in the past few years. So you can take a look at those. I don't want to read them off the list, but you can see even in just these first few years of our existence, we've done a lot, and we're happy about that. We really like to be flexible. We do most of our funding are giving through grants. So organizations or projects, for example, the ski team might come to us with a special request to help improve their equipment. And so we, as a board, will hear those grant requests and make sure that it meets our mission to stay in our community and impact the health and wellness of our community. So we really like to be flexible. The major driver for our ability to give grants is our endowment fund. When the foundation was kind of rebooted in 2015, 2016, our initial goal was to develop that endowment fund into about $500,000 by the year 2027. The endowment fund, Smith manages that for us and invests it, so it's obviously getting a rate of return. But every year we, on a rolling average, are given the ability to give about 4.5% in grants. So, like I said, we initially had the goal of raising $500,000 by 2027, but really the community has just floored us with their generosity, and our endowment fund currently sits at over $500,000 in 2022, and so we've kind of moved the goalpost to 2027, hoping to get that endowment fund up to $1 million. And if we reach that, then that's about $45,000 that we're going to have to work with every year to give grants to improve our community. So we're really excited about that. We are humbled by how generous the community has been and continues to be. One other thing I'd like to highlight is our Give Local campaign. This is going to be coming to your mailbox shortly, but you may start to see flyers like this around. This is kind of laying out which organizations locally are going to be the beneficiaries of this community fundraising effort this year. Every mailbox in the zip codes for Reed's Landing, Wabasha, Tileman, Kellogg will be getting something like this in their direct mail. And it allows them to specify for different service organizations in the community how they might like to donate funds. And so we're really just a clearinghouse for these dollars, and we help collect and collate and then give back to the various organizations. last year alone, was about $27,000 that was raised in the local giving campaign that, again, we took in Smith, kind of coordinates and tracks for us, and then we give right back to those organizations. So that's really, again, the generosity is kind of humbling. At the end of every summer, then we like to celebrate and kind of cheer on these local service organizations with an ice cream social under the bridge. So look for that later on in the summer. One other thing that a couple things that we like to do is, in order to encourage people to give to that endowment fund, is we have been working with local professionals, Julie Lightman and Mark Jarstad, financial advisor and attorney, to help educate people about their options for planned giving in their states. And so we're definitely targeting that in our fundraising efforts to help really build that endowment fund and really make this a sustainable ability to give in the years to come. Lastly, I'll just mention this. This is a new brochure for us, something that Smith is rolling out called Acres for Good. It's a farmland succession program that enables landowners to maintain and keep their farmland in productive farming, but also to rent and have that rental income go toward bettering the community. And so that's, I don't exactly know all the ins and outs of that, but this is something that we're going to be rolling out and probably introducing at that estate planning meeting. But so I can open it up for questions, but if anybody has any, but I just want to thank the city for being a wonderful partner in the past, and we look forward to working together. One of the big ones that I think we all know about is our pool pass. And I know that we're, our committees are working with Tony and city staff to try to figure out the best relationship. So that's a win-win for everybody. So.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Thanks to your board and all of the donors that make these projects possible. It's really wonderful. And also thanks to your board for keeping such a good website in order. I looked at another community's foundation website for some reason. I thought, wow, they have a really nice website. Well, I looked at ours and it's just as nice or nicer.
Yeah.
So if you are interested in what the foundation is doing, their social media all shows up on their web page, which is very easy to find. So thanks for that.
Including easy ability to donate online too.
Great.
So,
Great.
yeah.
Any questions for Scott or comments? Thanks
Thank you for your time.
for the update. We appreciate it. All right. We don't have any other presenters, but we would welcome any public comment at this time if you've never done that before. If you're online, you may need to unmute yourself, which is going to be down in the lower left of your Zoom screen. There'll be a microphone, and just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, and feel free to share with council. Do you have any public comment in person? There's quite a bit of participation online, so we'll give people a second.
Any public comment online?
Not seeing anybody frantically waiting. All right, well, moving on. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
Wendy wanted to note that 8-8 is an error and there's no
8-8 is empty. Okay. Yep. Anything further? All right, hearing none. I'll make a brief couple of comments just because it's been a very busy month, and I know the staff's been really busy working on some of the very key objectives the council's laid out. We did a strategic plan, just for the public's knowledge, we did a strategic planning work session. Was that just last week? Anyway, a half day facilitated very expertly, and it was really worth the time, I felt, and everybody was really engaged. Thanks to council for their involvement, gave us good direction about what we kind of know to be our strategic priorities, but have not explicitly stated. So we'll see a formal report of that activity in our June meeting. I was very fortunate to be tipped off about a rural EMS webinar, and I shared. Did you attend it too?
Yep.
Yeah, really, really good. The Center for Rural Policy and Development. I'd encourage everybody to sign up for their newsletters. It just so happens it does get directed to my spam, so I didn't see it, but a citizen told me about it. So it was a webinar overviewing rural EMS specifically, and it was very well evidenced. Hello, very well evidenced by state data that was conducted a survey of all EMS services. But what the Center for Rural Policy and Development did is they did tabbed analysis on the non-7 county metro data, and they found some very important correlations between investments in leadership and the struggles that we for rural EMS. It's a very easy webinar to watch. Anybody from the public who's interested in the state of rural EMS, and certainly members of council, I think you would enjoy it. I thought it was really, really good. And then a lot of dialogue too with rural services that are doing some collaboration with health systems. So it was validating of what I know we know to be the challenges of our rural EMS, but I think just becoming educated about it and hearing some of those same themes iterated by multiple communities, pretty much by all communities, was very good. The region 10, which is our southeast corner of the state of Minnesota, is conducting I'm going to pull this up so I don't get it wrong. A comprehensive economic development strategy work group, and I volunteered to participate. It's the abbreviation or the acronym is CEDS, CEDS, and I can never remember what it stands for, but essentially it's a document that has to be conducted every 5 years so that communities, whether it's counties or cities, can qualify for economic development assistance under public works and economic adjustment assistance programs. Kathy Enerson, who's assisting the port, ran into this when there wasn't a CEDS in place. Essentially, they were ineligible to apply for some funding. So I'm participating in that, but also if you would like to weigh in, there are going to be 3 SWOT analyses and 2 are in person in Rochester at the Wood Lake Meeting Center, but one of them is Zoom. So it's the 16th, the 18th, and the 19th of May. And I just forwarded it to Wendy, so it'll be on her inbox tomorrow to share with others, certainly members of council and port. They are looking for an RSVP by the beginning of next week so that they can plan accordingly. The in-person ones, there's coffee and things like that. So if you can't participate in those and have any insights you want to share to the strategy group, you can surely do that by letting me know what your thoughts are. And let's see, there was a Main Street meeting. It was called Buildings on Main Street. That was facilitated by Rethos, which is the umbrella organization under which all the Main Street Minnesota programs operate. And so I know our volunteer coordinator, Director Mary Fluchek, was there with one of the board members who was doing their basic Main Street programming, initial training, I guess. And Scott and I actually got to go speak about small tax credit projects. Those kind of meetings are really exceptional. It's a really fun way to see other cities and see what they're doing. Faribault has done some incredible work around, they're calling upstairs, downstairs, sort of, we'll probably talk about it here shortly too, addressing the vacancy of their upstairs. And one of the anecdotes was that in the city of Faribault, they have like an equivalent of 200,000 square feet of space that's underprogrammed or unprogrammed, and they have an extreme need for housing. And she said, imagine if you had a warehouse that had 200,000 square feet of capacity that was vacant, how much energy your city or your port authority or your EDA would be putting into that. And we just kind of let those second floors remain unoccupied or underutilized. And I think that's a really good thing to point out. Main Street Red Wing has done some really good work around that. And they did a film about a particular the Josephson's clothing store building and its adjacent property needing some really significant public works infrastructure. Maybe Tony's heard about it. It sounds like they realized that the utilities for that building, even though it came into new ownership and was in the process of being redeveloped, the water sewer just was not going to facilitate use of that building. So it took a lot of really creative collaborating between the city, Redlands Port Authority, the client, and then looking for other funding sources to get that figured out. So I'll try to get a link to that too. It's a really short film. It's really gives insight into what we could face if we had a building that couldn't be put into reuse. So when those Main Street meetings come up, I'm always like, I wonder if I should go. They're always valuable. In this case, I just went because I was invited to speak, but I wish I'd been there for the whole conference. And it's great to see the actual work and the facilities that are involved in other Main Streets. So I think that's it for me. We've got a lot to do, so I think I'll keep it short there. There's really great library program coming up. If you have any young adults in your family, Anne Ursu, who's a Minneapolis-based author, is just tremendous, and she's going to be here, I think, on Thursday. But things are really ramping up again, so thanks to the library. All right. Any committee reports? You guys had utilities yesterday?
Yeah. Nothing of note in the meeting. We are going to move our next regular meeting to the 31st, which is going to be a joint meeting with City Council to review the sewer and water facilities plan, so they don't have to do it twice. So we'll all be together for that.
All right, great, good. John, Port Authority.
Yeah, the Port Authority met it was late this month, or in April, so it was April 26th. And we had a pretty full agenda. I think the highlights are childcare. We been working with our CETA representative and city staff. And we approved $15,000 to go toward grants for newly licensed daycares or daycares that want to get licensed, as well as existing ones if we don't have enough new ones apply. They're $2,500 grants, and so it's kind of seed money to get things started. There's been quite a bit of work done with, and Emily, you can speak to that quite a bit, and Caroline can as well, with respect to the need for daycare in the city here. And this is just one way, hopefully, that we can get some stuff started on that. So that's one item. We approved the final numbers for the community development block grant for coronavirus. This is the HVAC stuff. We had different businesses apply for grants. And Caroline, thank you for all that work on that. We had 6 businesses or 6 total that were successful in those grants. Nothing on the agenda, all kinds of things on the agenda. We considered RFPs, requests for proposals on some city-owned property, and one of the properties that we discussed, we've actually sent to the planning commission and city planner for some review. So more to follow on that. We adopted our work plan. It's our 5 main items that we're kind of focusing on, and I think that'll be presented to council next month as well. We had some discussion with respect to the barge terminal and the financial costs and the next steps going with that. And that leads us to May 17th being a workshop with city council and port authority on those next steps. A couple other items that we touched on, maybe Caroline, you'll talk about these, but the Army Corps and the city did a public meeting with respect to the DMMP for public comment, and most of the comments, it wasn't as well attended as maybe I thought it was going to be. And most of the comments were in respect to the environmental studies, which are underway at this point. And then April 28th, we had the Army Corps and the Major General of the Mississippi Valley, which runs from Minnesota all the way to the Gulf, here to kind of be introduced to the projects that we have going on here. And that was hugely successful. And thank you for your efforts in that.
Yes, and we were hosted by the National Legal Center. They did a really nice tour of the expansion facilities, and John and I were sort of amazed at how much space they've been able to create for exhibits in the existing building. So yeah, we look forward to, did they say they thought after Memorial Day?
Yeah.
I hope to have that available to the public. And I just thought of something else that's very late breaking, but we did have a meeting with the American Queen Voyages. They have their company name is changed to reflect some of their other business in the Great Lakes and others. And it was a much more positive and encouraging commitment to bring their passengers here. And was it just a year ago, because you were on board. Mm-hmm. It was just a year ago that they visited with us, and essentially their thought was that they would love to see the ability for their boats to pick up their passengers that would come by motor coach from the port cities of Red Wing or La Crosse. So it's essentially excursion guests that choose to come to Wabasha for the Eagle Center and other offerings would then be picked up by boat. That was what they were hoping might be facilitated by future dock structure. The conversation this morning was different. They would like to see a half-day stop here. The passengers, the largest number of passengers, I think, is the American Queen with about 465 passengers plus 175 crew. And they were looking at probably up to 10 stops, 10 repeat visits. And so that's just a very different possibility than was discussed a year ago. So I think that's really promising. Dave Woodley was there from the Port Authority. Brian Malm, of course, city's engineer, was there. Meg Gamish-Tucker was there from the Eagle Center. And then they had one of their newer captains along with their business development person. So that was encouraging. I think it's probably time to regroup on those riverboat meetings that I know Craig and I used to attend 6-7 years back to sort of keep that momentum going. So they understand the constraints of the existing dock as planned, but we had some debate about whether there was any way to alter that. And I think also informed them about the piece related to permitting And they understand that aspect of it. So it was just really good to do that. Our commitment is to meet with them again in a year. Nothing will move rapidly on that, but I think we could probably have a quarterly or even just annually at this point, reconvening of our chamber. Our chamber used to lead those conversations or at least convene them. And I don't know if they're in a position to do that anymore, if their board would want them to be the conveners or if the city would want to be the conveners. But I almost wondered if I was hearing things because it was different from last year's conversation, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You talked about a joint meeting with the Utilities Commission with the council
Mhm.
on May 31st.
Correct,
Do you have a time for that?
4 o'clock.
Thank you.
Good point of clarification. And the time for this meeting on the 17th is also 4:30, okay. Just to have everybody aware, these are earlier meetings. Thanks for that. Jeff, did you want to say anything about the housing meeting?
No, it was just an interesting experience going through the Minnesota Housing Institute training. We had 2 days of training. It was pretty good. They're trying to, increase the development potential for homes in the Wabasha area. And we talked about, needing a housing study and we're going to have I think it's a 1.5-year program or so. So every quarter we meet for a day and a half. Then we have monthly meetings for our local team in Wabasha.
Right. So we'll learn about what the homework is tomorrow.
Yes.
All right. And we'll have our first follow-up since the DMMP meeting with the core tomorrow as well. So Carolyn and I might be a little late, but we'll get there. All right. And let's see, Tony, do you want to hop in? Oh, that was canceled. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. We did not have a street commission, meeting today. Probably have more of them in the future as street project planning starts firing up more. Park board met a couple weeks ago. We had a campground. People down there that were related, family wanted to switch with each other, so site to site, so we got that approved. We had 2 benches donated to Popcorn Park from Main Street committee, so that's good. Got those on order. We had probably 8 people show up from the Legion and the VFW in town here, and they wanted to provide their input for Vets Park. So we gathered a bunch of information there, and then they're gonna regroup, and I'm gonna meet with them. I'm gonna try to go down to their meeting Thursday night and gather some more information and talk back and forth on that project. And then we talked about creating an athletic field steering committee. So at the next meeting, we're gonna try and gather some names and maybe reach out to the public or see if anybody's interested in being on there and kind of start a big plan for that, so.
Great.
Other than that,
I nudged at least one person. There's been a lot of interest in this notion of tennis and pickleball courts. And so I had somebody reach out to me and I encouraged them to vocalize at that meeting when you're going to start to develop the group. So that's great.
and we're gonna,
You got the new bike locks in there?
yeah, they came in, Monday. What day is it? Tuesday. They came in, Monday, and then I let, Bill know, and he's gonna come up tomorrow and then install them, and then they should be in the program, so then we'll get them out, get the banner put up, unless they did.
Banners up.
Banners, okay, because they did all the banners today for the high
Sure,
school.
the high school.
We got St. Jude coming this weekend. And
So much.
Pool, and I'm just like.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, we've got pool on the agenda, so we'll touch on that later. And planning commission.
No April meeting, it sounds like we'll have a May meeting, the 10th of May.
Sounds good. So the St. Jude's thing, I don't fish, but I love it when they rip out of the marina. If you haven't ever gone down to Beach Park, I think it's as early as 6:30, 7 o'clock. It's really fun to watch.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be at Ike's Park this year.
Ike's Park this year, okay. So it's just fun, even if I just didn't think I had any interest until I went down there and hung around. Just the energy is it's really something. So we look forward to that. All right, and we can hear from our administrator who sent us her report, but.
Yeah,
Share
just
anything?
wanted to share an important announcement. It's election time again. And the deadline to file is May 17th through May 31st. All 3 wards have open positions for a 4-year term. There's an opening in Ward 1 for a 2-year term. And the mayor position is also open for a 4-year term. And then election date is November 8th, 2022. And then as we mentioned, it will be a busy month for council with this joint special meeting on May 17th at 4:30. And then this is added, and it's due to the fact that we need to have a public hearing on our new sewer and waters facilities plan. And just to give some background, I think there was some discussion at the strategic planning meeting of where we're at with our facilities assessment. And this will give a very good idea to council as to where we sit with all of our sewer and water facilities. And then, yeah, that May 31st deadline to file. And then I just wanted to add things that weren't mentioned is that the property tax insert was received very well by the community. Staff received positive feedback from the citizens on this report, saying it was extremely informative and helped them understand their bill better. So that was the first time we tried to do that, and we just took information that we had presented through the budget season and made it an insert in everyone's property taxes. And so it's probably the first year that people were happy opening their bill as to the fact that we got positive feedback. And then ambulance director interviews were conducted today, and we spent a good part of the afternoon doing that. And then Gunderson has agreed that they would be willing to do a business analysis. We went back to them and they would do it under their official arm, so they're drafting a legal agreement on that. And delinquency letters, Tyler, have they been sent already or to be sent? Okay, so in the near future, we are sending delinquent lodging taxpayer notices. And Tyler is our tax administrator, we've discovered. We have a position called tax administrator. And if people have questions on their delinquency, we'll work them out. And then we also have this wellhead protection plan, and all of us collaboratively are working on some implementation steps. So a big part of that is public education on how to protect water in Wabasha. And then sadly, our congressional spending request for the Highway 60 request was not forwarded on this year. So it was forwarded on last year. We got close. I think we're still waiting on the results of bonding funding or perhaps grant opportunities to fund that project.
Very good. Any questions for Caroline? All right, our consent agenda includes our minutes from April 5th, the lease contracts with Kellogg, approving a partial release of a Castler easement, the warrants, our annual liquor licenses, transient merchant permits for 2 entities, and gambling license for Silver Road Days and the fair. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move. I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we are all present. We can, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Yeah, we can do that. Which one shall we?
Appeal and the feasibility.
We're gonna skip over item general business 10.1, council direction on regulating short-term lodging, because we have 2 consultants on the phone or on the Zoom call. So we'll do the appeal of the Board of Adjustment decision. We have a lot of appendices that you hopefully reviewed, and then we have our resolution on that item. Any questions before somebody maybe wants to make a motion? We have corrections. Yeah, thank you. We have corrections outlined in a memo. So everyone should have that in front of you. So the corrections were the labeling of the resolution, correct labeling, correct spelling of Woodley, paragraph not matching the planning commission's recommendation. So a correction of that with a statement there. So if we wish to, with those amendments, make a motion, the motion is outlined in the memo.
We still haven't identified Jane Tim, who's the next door neighbor, who was never notified. So can we make a note of that somehow? She bought the property in 2021. I think in the summer, she was in it, she started inhabiting it in October of 2021, but she never was notified. So, I don't know. Whatever the purpose is, however they determine who the landholders are the neighboring landholders, if they look at the city tax or the county tax statement, those are not very current. So just a note that if you're gonna inform people, you need to look at current records.
So that, with that sort of pragmatic note taken, do we have any other changes? Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll approve the resolution, as it's stated in the memo. I think I want to make the motion.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign.
I,
Abstain.
Abstain, that's right. And I will abstain, having chaired it. All right.
If I may, is there, I'm sure there must be some kind of a procedure, Wendy, for like notifying, do you pull from a specific spot for those addresses and things like that?
Yes.
So how did this one get missed? Is this
We
something?
grab from our GIS system, which is through Bolton and Make. Bolton and Make's GIS system, randomly we get notifications from the county when they're ready to update the shape files. They send us those shape files, we get it to our GIS updates our mapping. When that happens, it isn't regular, it's not, it used to be once a year, once every year and a half, something like that. We get them maybe every half a year, but with that, we also put our items in the newspaper. So we do our due diligence to send it out to the best of our knowledge. And that's been the past practice for all of it. Newspaper,
you use Beacon,
we use Beacon.
because she's
Well-
on Beacon.
Beacon, I correct. We use our GIS through Bolton and Make, which gets updates from the county, which comes from Beacon, but we don't get them on the spot. Every time they have a change, they don't notify us. We get notification once a year, once every 6 months. So it's possible things can get missed in that.
Right, so the notice included the prior owners
Correct.
with a Florida address.
Yes.
Yeah. That residence wasn't skipped, it went to
No.
a prior owner.
And the people in Florida.
Right.
And our newspaper of record that we publish is the,
Here.
it's a Herald,
Yeah.
as it's always been,
Yes.
so,
Yep.
okay.
Very good, all right. And now we have another item with our engineering team on board, and that is the resolution ordering preparation of the feasibility report for 2023. And I think it's Katie who's gonna speak this one. Katie, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. How are you this evening?
It's beautiful here. We wish we were
Awesome.
outside.
All right, well, we'll make this a speedy report here. So tonight, what we're asking you to do is to pass a resolution that orders a feasibility study for the 2023 downtown reconstruction project. This project was in your capital finance plan and isn't intended to be partially financed with special assessments. Anytime a city does utilize special assessments, there is a specific process that is defined within state statute chapter 429, that a city must follow throughout the process, project development process. We often call this process, in short, 429 process. So the first step in this process is to prepare the feasibility study. The intent of the feasibility study is to pull together details on the project in a preliminary way that will better inform decisions as we move along, whether the improvements are necessary, cost-effective, and feasible, should be made as proposed or in connection with other improvements. And we also provide estimated costs for the improvements as we recommend, project funding and preliminary assessment amount, and a formula for how those are calculated. What we're preparing, or what we're asking you to do tonight, is really just the very first step as we start this process. As we prepare the feasibility study, we will go through open house, and actually I'm going to share my screen so we can, Carolyn,
Yep, there you go.
All right.
Can you do it now?
I think so. All right. Are you able to see the schedule?
Except it's really small.
All right.
You can zoom in a little bit on it. It's hard to read on those TV screens, but if any members can access this through the internet, maybe it'll be easier.
All right, so we're sort of here right at step one, ordering the preparation of the feasibility study. We'll move into that work starting this week. Throughout that process, we will hold a project open house. We invite property owners, community members in to talk a little bit about the project. In this particular open house, we will get more specific to what construction will be like. We want to hear from the property owner specifically in this busy, heavy district to be able to coordinate what that work may look like throughout the summer of 2023. We'll finalize our report, bring that back to you, and have you receive that report, provide us comments, and call for a public hearing on the improvement. This is the improvement hearing where we're going to be asking the public specifically for their comments on the project as proposed. We will have one more open house with the recommendations that were prepared with the feasibility study before the public hearing is held in August. At that meeting, you'll consider the comments that you receive from the public, and we'll ask you to order the preparation of the plans and specs. And so that's where we get into the meat of the project. Through the fall, early winter, we will prepare those plans and specs and bring them back to you to approve those before they go out for bid. That's anticipated at late November, early December for bidding in January. Once we go through the bidding process, we'll bring those bids back to you, ask you to have us prepare the assessment roll that goes with the bids that we receive. We'll have an assessment hearing on the amounts that are calculated before we approve the project and have you approve the contract and also the assessments that go with that. Related to this, there was discussion about some additional planning tasks within the downtown that will be done in conjunction with this project. We are proposing those to be done in a little bit separate process throughout the summer. And be part of a document what we would call the streetscape plan and go through a separate public process. We're proposing that for the community engagement on that piece of the work that we make use of a steering committee that has representatives from some of the key stakeholders within the community. The role for the steering committee would be to hear input from the public and then provide the city council with final recommendations through the process. We anticipate committee meeting starting up here in mid-May. We talked about completing a public visual preference survey where that would be available to all members of the public through a project website. Once we have that information, that we would prepare some concepts for the committee to review and provide us direction in preparation of some final concepts to go back out to the public in an open house. The committee, having heard the comments from the open house, would then provide a recommendation to city council. That would be here late September. And the idea here is that this part of the process is going to be reviewing some of the design elements on aesthetics, things like selection of specific streetlights or other types of amenities that might be used in the project, and that would then be part of or integrated into the final design of the project. So with that, I guess I will open it up for any questions you may have.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, and first of all, Katie Gaylor is with Bolton and Mank, and she's assisting Brian Malm. Our community is so much work. They hired 2 people to be our engineers. And she's doing a fabulous job just because it's simply, we have so many complicated projects. It did become too much, I think, for one person. And so she brings a wealth of experience being a public works director in other communities in southeastern Minnesota. And I think we're just really enjoying working with her so far. But what I wanted to add is just a big picture on how this is being financed, because I think, again, at the strategic planning session, there was some questions about how are we funding some of these priorities. And I just want to say that we're going to be borrowing for this project. And There is gonna be sewer and water debt that is covered by the project, from the sewer and water utility. And then we'll be levying, property assessments to cover the debt. So there'll be about, 28,000 per year, that'll be coming from individual property owners on this project. And then, well over 300,000 in debt that's going to be carried by sewer and water. And so you may ask, how can we take on so much sewer and water debt? As I've included in the staff recommendation, it's because we are retiring debt on old projects. So the sewer water payers are just going to see a regular 2% increase every year. But we are retiring some old debt, which is how this project is affordable. What you will notice is not here is we are not proposing to pay for this project out of the property levy. That's where we are also retiring some debt on our property levy taxes that we have. And that's where we have planned some of the other projects that you already looked at. So, yes.
So this is stretched out over 20 years for these bond payments. Is it the same thing for the assessments? Is that over 20 years?
That is what I understand. Katie, can you confirm that's the case?
I think we can look at different terms and that we would approve that with the resolution of adopting the assessment rule.
Okay.
Because historically, it's 20% of or I think our public improvement policy is 20% of the overall cost of the project, and then that's assessed per property basis, and that can be paid over 10 years of paid.
So maybe
taxes.
Why is this 10%?
I don't know.
why is it 10%? I think that's what we thought was feasible, or that's what we had discussed in those were the assumptions we put in that long-term plan that we discussed last year. I think Brian Malm could offer some more thoughts, but I think, so if we want to revisit that, we'd be lowering the debt for the sewer and water utility and increasing it for business property owners. But I think Brian Malm was kind of working from some experience, working with other communities and thinking what's going to be affordable for our downtown property owners. So we could do, I guess we could potentially even do more, but.
Well, I'm just wondering if we assess other projects at 20% and then this is 10%, is that going to cause us some problems?
Yeah, because our policy is 20%. Because we're going to bond the rest, so it's got to be a minimum 20%.
And Carolyn,
I guess I got to look at the long-term capital plan. And I don't have a server connection. I think what you are proposing or approving today is a feasibility report.
Yeah.
Dig into, can look into where we're at with the history on this. So Katie, did you have something?
Well, so what I will say is with the feasibility report, we will be calculating what the proposed total assessment amount is, and then the formula, we will review the assessment policy. Typically, we would include a preliminary assessment role based on the policy. This is a business heavy district, or it's not your typical residential zones. And so we'll have to look at those properties to determine how they fit within the assessment policy in regards to residential equivalency units. So that will all be looked at as part of the feasibility study and presented to you within that report.
Good.
So would some businesses be paying more than 20% for their share of the project that affects them? Or
So I think the improvement policy said something to the effect of if you have more than one lot, then you would pay because it's all about frontage. And corner lots, if one side's getting done, then the other side wouldn't get taxed on it. Because we've got some corner lots that are going to be affected too.
It's usually based on frontage.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the lines on the resolution says that it's proposed to assess the benefit of property for all or portion of the cost. So can someone be assessed for all of the costs?
No, our public, no.
But that's-
Our
I mean,
approval
that's-
policy, yeah. that wouldn't be the case, because it's not.
So maybe the for all or needs to be taken out of that resolution statement. It just sounds like, you know, somebody could get nailed for the whole thing.
Katie, do you have any comments on that?
You
Can
know,
we strike for the word all and still have an effective resolution?
I think if that is worrisome, that could be taken out of the resolution. I think the idea is that the feasibility study will determine what that amount is, or that percentage is, what that dollar amount is, and how that will potentially be distributed to the properties. So at this point, you're just asking that we look at that as part of the feasibility study.
All we're resolving is that we allow them to do the work, you know, determining feasibility, but that doesn't include
Yeah, we're
the
not
cost,
setting.
the cost, yeah, right. The cost allocation. But you can certainly make the motion with that stricken, like.
So can you read that back?
It says, whereas it is proposed, what?
The third whereas.
Yeah, it is proposed to assess the benefited property for all or a portion of the cost of the improvement pursuant to Minnesota statutes, chapter 42.
So the way I read that is the benefit for all or portion, not that one person's going to pay for the entire thing. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're concerned?
My concern was, I mean, are some people going to be paying 100% of the improvements in front of their property?
Yeah,
whereas
that's
other
not the
people-
I read that. I read that it's going to benefit all or a portion of it.
Of the cost.
So the feasibility study will enumerate what the formula will be to determine equitably what the total assessment amount is for the properties throughout the project corridor. I think what that's saying is whether the entire cost of the project or a portion of the cost is applied to that formula. And again, that's something that we've will enumerate in the report what that total dollar amount is.
Mhm. Makes sense. Do we have a motion?
I move.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Katie. This is
Right.
an ambitious,
Thank you.
an exciting timeline, and that first open house is right around the corner, so we look.
It
forward to
is. Yep. Thank you.
So much. All right, now we'll go back to one. Agenda will go back. Our general business, item 10.1, council direction on regulating short-term lodging. Do you want to tee this up, Caroline? I mean, we have a very good summary of it, but just sort of the genesis of this.
Yeah, determine if council desires to regulate short-term rentals in Wabasha, Minnesota. And the reason why I'm taking it to everybody is because I do believe that it would require resources, and we don't want to spend resources on things that aren't a priority. We're working on the lodging tax, as I mentioned, and we're trying to focus in on making sure everyone's compliant with our existing ordinance. So we had the attorney do some research, and there's no part of the city code that regulates short-term rentals. There is something that discusses what is a dwelling unit, and the definition seems to indicate you could define it kind of in either case. So the attorney believes that if the city, based on the way our code is written now, started prohibiting or regulating short-term rentals under the existing provision, we might be subject to litigation. I think,
Without further code change. right?
without further code change. With code change, we can regulate short-term lodging in the city of Wabasha. And we looked at some research and gathered feedback. So clearly what we've heard is that we would elect to regulate short-term rentals if they are considered problematic for the community from a zoning or complaint perspective. I checked in with the police department. They have not had issues with short-term lodging from a police perspective. Brenda from Turning Waters Bed and Breakfast, who is on the line but unable to speak, but maybe if she gets into a spot to speak, maybe she will. But she has expressed concerns that short-term rentals aren't being regulated and it's not fair to bed and breakfasts who are. They need to have a business insurance and not a property insurance, and she believes that they are not obtaining proper insurance. And she talked about that they are also required to get a health license from the state of Minnesota, but are not doing so. And then Port Authority member David Woodley also contacted me about witnessing 12 people housed in a single family home on a weekend. And then other than that, I have not personally received complaints.
How do you determine how many rental properties or what are they?
We are
VRBO
aware-
Properties are in the city.
We had Lisa Springer do some research. So she looked at Airbnb and VRBO, and I think we concluded I included the list, like 33 properties. So that's how we did it, Verbo and Airbnb research.
So they're not required to come into the city
No.
to register? or
Nope,
anything?
they are in Lake City, which is, we have an example from Lake City that they're required to register. They're not required to register in the city of Wabasha. I dug into how Lake City is regulating them, and what they do is their staff person looks at plans, ensures there's sufficient parking and there's an emergency contact list, but everything else, it's basically, they don't inspect them. It's just like, on your honor, signing here, affidavit, I'm following all the laws. I think my concern is that if we now say, you are required to do all these things and we start receiving complaints, now it's part of our code. So we are obligated to make it our problem, whereas currently it's not our problem to regulate those.
You don't even
short-term
know
rentals.
where they are though.
I do, yeah.
Well, somebody could go on VRBO and decide to put their house on VRBO. They won't tell you.
No, but
How
it's,
would you know?
you have to check the public record, which is how they do business. So yeah, it's the listings, and they
Yeah.
can change, and they have changed. I'll
That's
tell
a
you.
lot, that's work in
It's a
itself.
lot of work. I look frequently, I sort of was thinking of this on my own, just realizing that, we have one major lodging establishment and then several small lodging establishments. And during COVID, you'd see far more visitors than you'd think would be able to be here. And it's sort of like walking around in the evening. They're not driving back home. They're clearly staying in the neighborhood. And I hadn't looked for a while, and I couldn't believe how many more there had been than when we first moved here, and I would oftentimes need accommodations for family. And so it is a growing and changing thing, and it is a lot of work. And by virtue of the way they're listed, they typically don't give you an address. So being in a community this small, if there's a photo of the house, you kind of know which property it is, but that in and of itself is a tremendous amount of work. There's no registry that you can download that says these are the businesses operating that way.
Yeah.
I will say I say that like I'm concerned. Personally, I'm not concerned. I was excited to see the changes and what's available for visitors. I think we whether there's a market for another large lodging establishment, I think the Port Authority's gotten kind of mixed messages about that, but certainly the demand is there such that people are improving properties and putting them into service. I live by several. They've all been improved. The properties that have been turned into short-term rentals have all been significantly improved aesthetically, anyway, from the outside. And I haven't had neighborhood complaints or heard neighborhood issues related to it. The issue of how many people should be in one of those, I don't know if that's something that the state licenses are supposed to address or not. But I guess the way I've seen it is when, somebody has a bridal shower or something and has 12 friends over, they could do that in their own home as well. We don't have a restriction on occupancy. So I've heard that as a concern, but yeah, it was a lot of work just kind of putting together the list of who should be paying taxes.
I don't know, I'm kind of thinking as a city, wouldn't we want to know where these places are?
From an emergency standpoint, I think that's worth thinking about. We did discuss that with a sort of a small group that had brought the issue up, and a few people gathered. Jay was there, I was there. I can't remember who else was, city staff just talking about even the compliance with the lodging tax issue. And I think that the idea of a registry is appealing because at least you have them on record and that's what that use is. Again, I don't know what EMS knows about who's in my household when a fire happens, I
Nor do
think,
we care.
and don't
We don't
want to,
care.
right? So I don't know what you
So-
do with that information, and in the event of an emergency, I don't know how it would be utilized. I think it would only be utilized again if a property does become problematic, but then you're probably dealing with a non-compliant non-responder. So again, our other codes would address that. And having somebody say, I agree to follow the codes of the city is redundant. We all are obligated to follow the codes of the city. So that's just work obtaining someone's consent to do what they're already obligated to do.
Well, if you don't record how many of those businesses are in the city, you don't know how many are paying tax or how many aren't paying tax unless you do a research like this.
Right. Right, which is what it's taken to get to this point,
It's
yeah,
time
to get to
intensive.
compliance. I guess,
Labor intensive, so
Yeah,
I'm wondering, should we just require them to register with the city?
I guess, I mean, as I put in the staff recommendation, on a big picture level, I think it absolutely makes sense. I'm concerned that we're always talking about we can't invest any more in extra staff time, and I just don't think an $80 registration fee or $100 is truly gonna affect the staff time to even manage a registration process. So, so I think that staff thinks I conceptually, I think it would be great, but just at this time, I'm not in favor of adding extra work to staff time because we have those big projects that we identify.
and I did hear some public support for the lodging tax, and people view it as this great source of revenue for the city. That's a myth. It's very little revenue for the city. It's that even that tax piece of it.
It's revenue for
right.
the chamber
Right.
convention,
So,
and that's
yeah,
money
and
that
that's-
we don't have to take out of our general fund to give to the chamber of commerce. It's important. It
Right.
actually is for the city.
Yeah,
That's for
if you
city
think of it that way, I
purposes.
mean, I guess I think of the city's support as separate from whatever the chamber revenue is, but it isn't, we don't have a lot of revenue to work with in terms of the staff time.
Well, we
tax
could,
itself.
if you take that 5% that the city gets from the 3% tax, and let's say that's $2,800 right now, this last year. Let's say that goes up to $6,000. Then you deduct that extra from the $15,000 and give it to the chamber. Now we're paying for
I
that
see,
staff.
I see, okay.
So it's still not coming out of taxpayers' money or pockets, but it's getting paid for. And the chamber's still making money because they're collecting this lodging tax, but they're paying that 3% administration fee. That's what I'm looking at it.
I
So-
don't
so
know if
that's
that's
the-
legal. I don't, just because you had to have us to research that, Dean.
Well,
and-
no.
Yeah,
Our code says 3% out of 5%. Back 5%, administration fee is 3%. We have, as a city council, when we budget that $50,000 a year, we can save, we're reducing that by $5,000. And put that money towards our administration of that work. So I don't see why that would be difficult. It's a budget item, $50,000 a year minus 6,000 or whatever it should be.
And that can be accomplished simply by enforcing the tax. That doesn't have to involve additional.
Well,
You don't know where the business
you
is
don't
going.
know where businesses are.
Well, they really can't do business without working with one of the major
Yeah,
platforms.
they
So
can. They can advertise anywhere.
They
You know,
can,
people do it.
they can.
Yeah, and they,
You know,
and you still then you have to invest staff time to try and determine how many businesses we have in the city and who's got it, and they should be paying lodging tax. So that's, I don't know, it's time investment.
So then what would how would that work operationally? How would the registration operationally replace the work that's happening now?
It wouldn't, but you wouldn't have to search. All you have to do is look through the list of people who registered. You
I
would
think you'd still have to search because you'd have to verify that anybody's telling you that they are doing that.
But not as much. I don't think.
Yeah, I remember when we did dog and cat licenses, where we
Kind of
were
a
like
similar thing.
10% of all animals in the whole town registered and everybody else just forget it.
So if you pay, I've got an Airbnb property and you rent it from me. Do you pay me directly or does that get paid to Airbnb and then Airbnb pays me?
Airbnb.
So at that point, is there taxes? Are they paying state taxes
yeah,
or?
Airbnb will collect all that stuff. Well, if you're working through them and then reimburse, send it to the city supposedly, and if you've registered properly.
So Airbnb will send the money to the city.
I believe so.
Or do they send to the state?
They send the sales tax to the state.
We're working on seeing if Airbnb would send it to us, but right now they only do that for the city of Duluth.
Yeah, I never got any feedback. I asked them a question, and
Yeah.
I never got any feedback from them. But I mean, I think the first thing, I mean, we don't want to prohibit these short-term
Right.
rentals, but we just want to make sure that they're operated safely and they pay the lodging tax. So we got sort of a level playing field with the hotel, motel, B&Bs, right? And so I think the first thing we really should do though is update the zoning code to make short-term rentals an improved use of property. That would remove any ambiguity in the zoning ordinance about the short-term rentals. I think you only need to change two things. You just need to add a definition of a short-term rental, which is what Lake City used. They just said a short-term rental is rental use of a dwelling unit for 30 days or less for tourist or transient use. So that doesn't take a lot of staff time to do. And then you just say initially allow all residential commercial zone areas of the city. This is what Lake City did too. So that would at least take away any ambiguity in our zoning code as far as if it's legal or not. And then, you know, you're talking about regulation, and I think you should regulate before they become problematic, okay?
Well, I
And
think
then-
regulation is another step, but I don't know.
That would be the next
Right now,
step. We
I'd just
don't know
like
if
to see
we-
registration.
But the Lake City has a fairly, to me, it's fairly unobtrusive to the short-term rental operators. You know, they have a pay a great $80 registration fee. It'll capture the units that need to pay the lodging tax. It requires you have a 24/7 contact to be available to the renters and the city fire, police, EMS. You know, if something happens in one of these houses, I'm sure Joe would like to know who the owner of the property is and be able to contact them or something. That's kind of important. If it has a hot tub or a pool or something, they need to, this is the Lake City ordinance. They need to provide a notice to the users that they have or have not been inspected by health department. You know, they use it at their own risk. They have to ensure that the short-term rental has operating smoke, CO2 detectors and fire extinguishers. They need to state their max occupancy limit. You know, you can't have 12 people in a, 2-bedroom house. That doesn't make, that's not right. That's just looking for trouble. You know, you can look through this Lake City ordinance for any other regulations. You know, and I question the staff workload thing. You know, we currently regulate the ATV and golf cart use, and that brings in what? Maybe $1,000 a year. We also regulate businesses that have pool tables, jukeboxes, dance floors. That doesn't bring any money. You know, so that's my little bit on this.
I guess my issue is, I don't have a problem with registering it, but I still think it's gonna be a pain because you're relying on them to come in to register it. So don't look at the ones that are on VRBO or wherever, just look at the ones that just do it themselves. That's the ones I'm concerned with. But then how are you gonna prove their lodging? So you're gonna have them say, yeah, we had this month, this lodging this time, and we owe 3%. Then in June, we had this for 2 days and we
That's
owe
what they're
this.
supposed to do now.
How do we do that?
Well, whatever if they don't, that's the question. All of a sudden now we have one full-time staff member looking at all this stuff.
I think there's penalties in the Lake City ordinance if you violate this stuff.
We don't have staff going up to American Inn saying, what was your attendance today or last week? We just assume that they're gonna send their lodging tax what they owe. We don't call out there and say, how many visitors did you have last year?
So we have a lot of discussion. I don't know if we have any direction for if anybody wants to see any of these suggestions further researched. We've got clear guidance from the attorney.
What's the attorney say?
Look at the report.
He just
Caroline.
basically
Oh.
said that you cannot, if you don't want to regulate short-term rentals, you're okay.
You're not required.
Yeah, but if you would want to regulate them, you need to change your code. That's what he said. And then I kind of just got the impression that, yeah, you have quite a few of them for a small community, but then I got the impression too, this is going to be time and effort for the attorney and people to create the ordinance, research it. I mean, it's just, I know it sounds maybe simple, but I just think with every regulation, then there's an obligation that you can get sued if you're not enforcing it, and time and effort to get it off the ground. And So I guess, like I said, I'm not in favor right now. I would be happy to talk about it a year from now, or get it in the budget but if we're being honest, it's just gonna go on someone's existing plate, right? Because this is not gonna be fund a full-time position or a part-time position. It's just gonna be something that someone now has to do that they're not currently doing.
But you don't have one person dedicated to administering liquor licenses all year either. You know, once this stuff is
Well,
set up,
Wendy,
it
I don't-
just doesn't, you know,
Or golf cart.
or golf carts and ATVs. No one's
Yeah.
sitting there looking at that every day.
I don't,
Well, you wouldn't have to, those are one-time fees.
So is this.
This is not,
So
this
this
is
is-
relying on somebody. You're still gonna have to follow up with people to say, did you have people in June?
Well, but.
I mean, right now, we're relying on our current American Inn and Coffee Mill to do it, and I don't think they're doing it consistently.
Well, our ordinance, our law says that they have to pay lodging tax, okay? And
so
I
yeah,
think there's penalties.
we're expending staff time and resources to get the lodging tax collected. The concern is if we add a registration requirement, now that's something else that we're tracking, developing ordinances for and doing. So we're just trying to do the ones we have well. And we're doing that through research and things like that. So,
So,
yeah,
there's been an effort to kind of get current with lodging tax.
Right.
And there's 4 that are only out of 33, or what was that?
no, there was more. There's
More?
several.
Several?
How many letters? 15, I think.
Okay, so
Yeah.
50% are not compliant, right?
Yeah, so
So
we have a
we-
problem with what we have. Yes.
So if the effort's made to try to collect the lodging tax, right, you send the letters out and we see a improvement in that.
Does it open the door for additional
Yeah.
exchange with these businesses?
I want to make a motion to direct the planning commission to update the zoning code to make short-term rentals of legal use dwelling units in residential and commercial zoning districts in Wabasha.
Okay, we have a motion for the planning commission to,
I'll second that.
okay, we have a second, any discussion?
So the planning commission is gonna be what again, would you repeat?
To update the zoning code to make short-term rentals a legal use of dwelling units in residential and commercial zoning districts in Wabasha. Because right now, even our lawyer says it's kind of ambiguous. Whether it, I mean, it's not listed as a legal use of your property. So our code says that it shall be considered prohibited if it's not listed.
No, what the attorney says, you can interpret the code to allow short-term rentals exist anywhere that dwelling units appear in the code. I think he took issue with the fact that we don't, you know, if we don't consider them dwelling units, we're probably not on good ground. That's how I read it.
Would you be willing to amend the motion to say, to ask the planning commission and planning staff to come back with an assessment of how that would work within our zoning?
Yes.
Okay, I would,
So we have a motion, we have an amended motion, we have a second to that amended motion. Great, so the motion by Jeff and then a second by Dean with that amendment made. Any further discussion?
that makes sense, Tim?
Good, we've got planning nodding. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. And we have our pool staffing pay, which I think is a better story than it was when this agenda item was drafted. Tony, you want to share with us?
So, yeah, last
Week? right?
let me see here, which meeting was that? So Wednesday of last week, we met with, new pool director, the old pool director, and Lisa from City Hall, who's trying to help learn the pool routine in case we have turnover. So we looked through our numbers and we had like 17, but it's in the description, but for the public, I mean, we had 17 lifeguards, fairly young, because we don't have the rotation that we used to have.
Your alumni are
previous years. Yeah.
moved on.
And we only had one 18-year-old, sort of, we call it an adult to kind of help oversee in case of emergencies and everything else. And then the WSI instructors being is that there was only a few people that came back from last year. We only had 4 people sign up for that, and we needed double, because some of them will be on vacation, and there's a whole, different, lot of things that could come up. So, kind of went into panic mode, I called the mayor, and Caroline was on vacation.
I was like, am I gonna have to get certified to teach swimming lessons or what?
And when it came down to it, after our 2-hour meeting, we kind of looked at what Quick Trip was paying and different other places that some of these kids had left, because they, you know, the pool directors out at the school, and they talked to a lot of kids, and they're like, you know, I'm not doing that for 13, 14, 15 bucks an hour, depending on what you're doing. So Quick Trip's paying 18, you know, there's another one that was paying 22. And so some of the group was like, well, let's raise it up to 20. I'm like, I can't just do that, you know? And so then we thought about 18, and I said, I can't just do that. I said, we're not gonna have a council meeting in between now and lesson sign up, which is later this week. And so I contacted you two and kind of told you, and we came back, Caroline got a hold of me and said, you know, 16, we can maybe do 16, but that's it. And so I communicated that out to the pool directors and said, this is it, one-time shot. And I said, we're gonna have to meet Monday and make a decision. Well, then they got a hold of us over the weekend, and they had, they over the loudspeaker at the school, they said, let's have a 10-minute meeting, anybody interested? Maybe it took a little bit of explaining of what swimming lessons is, you know, because some of the kids do not know, and they're expected to teach 6 kids at a time. And I think it took a little bit of a discussion with some of the kids that picked up some extras. Some of the other ones signed up for WSI instructor. They did like the $1 extra raise. And I think we had 5 or 6 adults, if not more, sign up for the front desk. So
Great.
hoping we're covered.
And then,
What am I missing?
yeah, I mean, I don't know that we've prepared an estimate, but the water safety instructor is, if you're not 18, you're getting $16 to teach a water safety instruction course. And just talking in the office, there's a huge demand for water safety instruction in our community. And then the $16 an hour gets us an adult over the age of 18 at that pool, which we need to run. So I don't think it'll be a huge impact. It's $1 more than what we had budgeted for. And we're just hoping that we can just absorb that cost. So
We haven't had swimming lessons for
2 years, yeah.
So I think it's a good thing. I think everybody was kind of behind that, and that's kind of what we did. So.
Yeah, I've
My
never,
question is $16 enough to attract them? You said you've got people signed up already. Are we gonna keep them or?
Well, with the economy that's going, you know, and pays that are, you know, $1 an hour jobs, you know, like McDonald's and everything else that are skyrocketing. I don't know what next year's gonna be in inflation.
I'm thinking about this year.
Yeah.
Next year.
well, and it's a culture.
yeah.
So this new pool director will have the opportunity to build a culture, and it's a workplace. It is. I know they're kids, but they have options. So the city of Egan was showcasing some of their initiatives to attract part-time seasonal help. And I'm sure they're talking about big groundskeeping, huge city, obviously. But even just they were giving green sunglasses. I know it sounds stupid, but just to build awareness of who some of these seasonal employees are that aren't recognized as being city employees. You know, I think and they talked about sort of an appreciation event, even having guards who did say yes this year, who might be new to, you know, share their experience, just like you said, share their experience with other age appropriate, possible recruits for the next year. You know? Yeah. Well, that's good news. Thanks so much, Tony.
Are lessons for sure go then, or are you still?
Yeah, we're gonna start out with, this is what I, you know, kind of heard, because we didn't meet this week, but they said that they're on it. So it sounds like there's 4 sessions of swimming lessons. And each session is so many weeks long, so many kids. And so depending on how many instructors we have, we're gonna set that up. Because there's also communities that, you know, like Nelson
That don't have pools.
and Pepin, you know, and they're constantly after us every day, what's going on. We're like, well, you know, we're taking care of here first, and then if there's extra room, you know, we'll open it up. But so we won't really know more out of town, or how many kids until.
Until the
probably
sign up.
In the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And sign up is one.
Not sure on that.
It'll be on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll almost have to figure out, and I'm sure they're on this, but we're gonna probably have more demand than spots available, so I don't know how traditionally they decide who gets it first, or somebody mentioned there's waiting lines outside of City Hall to sign up, so we'll just have
And
to,
that's the norm. That's not a new, I mean,
yeah.
that was usual, yeah.
I gotta be on vacation.
All right, thank you, Tony. All right, our next item of business, as you all know, we have conducted a administrator review. So John and Brian and Wendy and I served as liaisons to council, and you all received this survey, as did department heads, and you received that. The feedback is glowing. We didn't celebrate your actual 1-year anniversary, and I need to get it in my calendar because the year went really, really, really fast, and it was hard to believe how much has been accomplished. So thanks for a tremendous amount of work in a new position, getting your head around everything, and as evidenced by the comments, besides, not just the ratings, but also the comments, it's we very much appreciate having you here. Your style is, very easy to work with, and we appreciate all the communication we receive between, around, before, and after meetings. Did you want to say anything? Do you have
Yeah,
any
I
goals?
haven't had a chance to digest them, but I did see that they were very positive, and I appreciate that. Appreciate the positive review, because as you know, kind of your first year on the job, there's a lot of learning and you don't get it right all the time, but it was great to see that. And then I appreciate, there were a few comments with some constructive feedback, and I always welcome constructive feedback, and I'll take a look at those. And my door is always open throughout the year for constructive feedback as well. But I think kind of as I assessed myself for where I could improve, I think I saw some kind of pick up on areas that I'd like to see myself improve on. And I think it was interesting. We were listening to other people interview, and I was kind of thinking, myself, it's just continuing to prioritize, and we worked on that. And so, in making sure I'm getting what I can get done. And so, yes, thank you for the feedback, because I'm going to carefully review that, and it helps me kind of stay motivated and just know that to get that feedback is really appreciated.
And thanks for all that you do to motivate and encourage and develop all the other leaders at City Hall, in the city. Their leadership, your investment in their leadership really matters, and of course, everybody. So thank you to department heads for the participation and all the comments as well. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Please stay with us for a while.
Yes. We are on a learning curve too. So we're right there with you.
I just want to comment on how this evaluation is done. I like the new platform where we were able to solve form. That worked really well.
Yeah. We talked to the attorneys, our employment attorneys obviously advise on these kind of things all the time. They said it really can be that easy. It's just got to be a survey, and thanks to Wendy and Lisa probably helped to the survey development, and it was slick. So
Yeah, the survey was well developed. So.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about a survey about me, but it went well, so.
I think everybody would stand by their comments if you had any questions. So. Very good. All right. And that is all on our general business menu of items, but we have a lot of donations. I asked if Brian would please read them because he's responsible for helping to, steward some of those. Brian, you want to take us through the donations?
Yeah, we do have a pile of them. The first set of donations is from the library. Jane Hager, $500 in memory of Nick Marks by Linda and Ron Stancher, $25 in memory of Ed Ostrom by Jim and Mary O'Brien, $50 by Diane and Fred Schoberg for Ancestry.com subscription and other programs, donated $2,000. $200 from Bill and Gloria Hager, $250 from Amy Schertz for the summer reading program, $209.32. It says that's for the Selco mini grant for therapy lamps. I don't have a party listed. And then $155 from Dave Kennebeck for birdhouse donations. Next up is fireworks. We've gotten a lot of donations in. This is a partial list. We have more checks that are in. They just didn't make the cut this time. They'll be on for next time. And I'm hoping to get many more in. So we still need donations if you're willing. Heritage Laundromat, $200. Bob and Diane Shield, $200. Mary and Jerry Arns, $100. K&K Brewing, they are the restaurant owners, Silver Star and some others. They donated $500. Johnson and Schofield is $100. Edward Jones, $200. American Legion Post 50, $50.
500.
Yeah, 500. That was a typo. I thought that was strange. And Wabasha Dentistry, $200. Paul Fleetcheck Insurance, $150. And Perry Dental, $100. More donations. These are all for Veterans Park. In memory of Nick Marks by Clary Abbott, $100. In memory of Bill Reister by Dennis and Jane Hager, $25. The rest of the donations are in memory of Bill Reister, so I'll just read them all off. $50 by Cody Trust, $25 by Lee Amex, $30 by J and L McMillan, $50 by James and Diane Heitkamp, $50 by Jeffrey Grainer, $50 by Lori and James Perry, $50 by Joe and Amanda Mon, $100 by Willard and Nora Drysdale, $40 by Nancy Kuklinski, $25 Charles and Nancy Prawl, and $100 by Donna Bescher. And those were all for the memory of Bill Reister.
Very good. That's a long list. Wow. Thank you so much for those donations. And I know there'll be more coming. Do we have a motion to approve donations?
I'll move through.
That was an echo. I'm going to go Craig for the second because I was looking at him. Tim was our first. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Wonderful. And do we have a motion to adjourn? Are there any other announcements? That it's a very busy time of year. I mean, it's graduation will have happened the next time we meet, or not quite.
Yeah.
It's just the spring is going to speed up.
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
I'm seriously considering not running again. I served 6 years. I've enjoyed it 6 years. I've got other things on my thing. I'm not saying never, but it looks like I'm not going to run this year.
Aren't you still in for 2 more after this?
No,
No, it's-
Always special. He was special
Oh,
election.
all right.
Yeah, I had the same, I was alarmed the last time we had this conversation. All right, if you say so, Craig. Mendy,
Board of Appeal,
Monday.
Monday the 9th at 6.
Yeah, we're gonna do it here.
Yeah. In person.
In person?
Yeah.
We'll do via Zoom with the county, but we'll have
Some people here.
Okay.
members here.
and we'll see how the next month goes. I mean, the data doesn't look good for case transmission in Wabasha County. I don't really know what, I mean, I think we do know what's gonna happen, but we decided to stay in person. That's what we had noticed. And didn't want to make a short change, knowing there might very well be some public who were showing up at City Hall and didn't have the opportunity to Zoom in. So thanks for being here. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves and your neighbors, and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Thanks, Tim. For a second? Oh, no.
Second.
All right, Brian, thank you. We have a second from Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank